Suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule is digging in his heels after being suspended yesterday for refusing to step aside. Now, the decision is as per the terms of the NEC's resolution that officials or members facing criminal charges should step aside. Speaking to Eyewitness News yesterday, Magashule says he will appeal his suspension.
I'm still a Secretary General. I've suspended, as the NEC was suspended Cyril.
What does that mean when you say the NEC suspended the president of the ANC? What has he done to deserve a suspension from you?
Allegations, those who have allegations, those who are charged, those who are reported to have been involved.
And what about your suspension? We understood earlier today
I've appealed.
Sorry?
I have appealed to CD.
So because you have appealed, you remain Secretary General of the ANC?
I'm Secretary General of the ANC. I was elected by conference.
Meanwhile, Magashule has made startling accusations saying state resources are being used against him and other senior members.
What do you think is happening? Why do you think your comrades are coming after you?
Yeah, because they are using state organs. And they have been using state organs, and we have been quiet, and we know this. And we know what they are cooking. This is not the last case. We know what they are cooking.
Who?
We know what they are cooking against Supra. We know what they are cooking against Bo. We know what they are cooking against Lindwe Sisulu. We know what they are cooking against some of the ministers.
All right. Well, you've heard the Secretary General, the suspended Secretary General. Let's speak now to the President of the ANC Veterans League, Dr. Snuki Zikalala, who talks to us all the way from Cape Town this morning. Mr. Zikalala, thank you very much for your time. I wonder if you had a chance to hear the Secretary General. He says, I'm still Secretary General of the ANC because I've appealed. Your reaction to that particular statement?
It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that things have turned out this manner and this way. Really, as veterans, we're not expecting that this is how our Secretary General will behave, because we stated many, many times that he is a member of the African National Congress, will abide by the rules and objectives of the organization. And all of a sudden, now that he's been suspended, and he's not been suspended by the president, he's suspended after the NEC took a resolution and a decision that those who are criminally charged are given 30 days to voluntarily step aside. If failure to do so, the Rule 25.70 will kick in. And of course, the NWC, when it met on the 3rd, it reconfirmed that it reconfirmed and implemented the decision of the NEC. The NEC is the highest decision-making body of the African National Congress. And so immediately after those who refused to voluntarily step aside, it was said that letters must be written to those who are criminally charged, and they be suspended from the organization, and also Rule 25.70 must kick in.
Yeah.
So it was made clear to him and to everybody that they are not supposed to represent the African National Congress. They're not supposed to deal with matters affecting the African National Congress. They're not supposed to hold press conferences. They don't have those delegation powers have been taken away from them. And
Dr.
So
Zikalala. Dr. Zikalala, let me interrupt you, because I want to put it to you that as a person who leads a structure within the African National Congress, a very senior structure at that, you lead a Veterans League of that party. This is not a good look for the governing party, first and foremost. You should have seen this coming, because there were suggestions that the Secretary General told his fellow top 6 members at a meeting on Sunday that he allegedly is not going to step aside. So what is the next best thing to do right now to try and at least put up an image of cohesiveness in the ANC?
Well, as you know, it's not about the Secretary General. It's about the African National Congress. It's about the integrity and dignity of the African National Congress. If an individual is found wanting or is involved in malfeasance, that individual has taken an oath of office. He has taken an oath in the African National Congress that he won't be involved in any activities that undermine the integrity of the organization. That individual must account as an individual. The African National Congress is a voluntary organization. And I'm saying that we expected that the Secretary General will do better. And we as veterans, we respect him. We really respect him.
If the Secretary General, Dr. Zikalala, does not do better, it's expected this afternoon that he's going to hold a media briefing. Overnight, you heard him say that the president was suspended by him. The kind of confusion this is going to cause, not just in South Africa, but the continent that looks up to the ANC as the oldest liberation movement, not to mention the kind of chaos this might cause in the market.
Well, in as far as we're concerned, that press conference will be illegal because he's not the Secretary General currently. He's a suspended Secretary General, and the suspension is made clear if he is temporarily suspended until he has appeared in a court of law, until he has been cleared of criminal charges of fraud and money laundering. Once that is done, he can then come back. And so what we are saying is that we as the African National Congress, we took a resolution at NAVREC that will cleanse the African National Congress, will make sure that we root out corruption within the ANC. We've got into power because of an anti-corruption campaign. And we have this privilege. Society has given us a privilege to govern on its behalf. It's a privilege. It's not a must. And so we have to comply with what we said we'll do to society. Because corruption robs poor people of employment, robs people of quality water, robs people of infrastructure development, robs poor people of proper and quality health care. And it cannot come from ANC members. It cannot.
Dr. Zikalala.
Cannot allow that to happen.
Dr. Zikalala.
Yes.
I want to ask this of you. And I'm sure I'm not asking just for myself. Many other South Africans watching this right now are extremely concerned, I would think. What does the ANC need to do now to assert its authority and assure South Africans that it is in control?
No, the African National Congress is in control. This is a decision of the National Executive Committee, which is the highest decision-making body after the after conference. And so the African National Congress is in control. President Cyril Ramaphosa and the top 5 are in control. The NEC is in control because we're implementing the NEC resolution. It's a structure. And so it is in control. And so we are saying ourselves as veterans that we'll help the organization to cleanse itself. And so if individuals don't want to comply with rules and regulations of the organization, tough luck. There's nothing that we can do. And so the NEC will be meeting over the weekend. And of course, the NEC will deliberate on this matter. And of course, a resolution will be taken on how do we deal with individuals who are refusing to comply with rules and regulations of the organization. And so there is no purge of anybody in as far as we are concerned as veterans. This has been coming. We knew exactly who has been involved. In as far as we're concerned, we don't know anything about state resources targeting individuals. We don't know about that. And if those individuals are there, they must appear, they must go and raise their complaints with the Integrity Commission and said, we are being targeted because we are opposing what is happening within the African National Congress. Within the NEC, there are debates, there's criticism and self-criticism, and at times the president is been challenged openly. And he has never said no.
Let me ask you this. Ace Magashule has alleged that state resources are being used. And it's not the first time he's saying this. He's actually repeating it now. He says they are being used against people like himself, Suprama Omapilo, Lindiwe Sisulu. Is there evidence of that? Are you aware of such claims from him?
No. Unfortunately, with Suprama Omapilo, He was there when the PEC, the Provincial Executive Committee of Northwest, was suspended, was removed, and an IPC was put in place. He was there. He implemented that. He effected that, because what was happening in Northwest, it was terrible. State resources were used. People were looting with impunity in front of his eyes. And so it was decided that that PEC is not functioning in the interest of society in Northwest, but it was replaced with the IPC. And so he was there, he effected that. And so today he cannot crowd foul and say, Supra Mahuma Bello. It's a pity, we should not discuss these things. We are, this is an organization which is more than 107 years old. And so, but at the same time, we as veterans, we believe that where there's tension, there are frictions, there is movement.
Yeah.
Because there will not be movement if there are no tensions, there are no disagreements, but we'll come out victorious as the ANC. We'll make sure that we bring back society's trust in the organization, because we have what we call a deficit of trust.
Yeah.
And so, as the Veterans League, we believe that we'll survive the storm itself. We'll make sure that we renew the organization. We'll make sure that those who join the African National Congress are people who are committed to the values and principles of the organization, not for self-interest and self-gain.
Dr. Zikalala, I want to ask you to stay exactly where you are, because when we continue, I'd like to ask the question, if the ANC at party level is in chaos, it's a governing party, what should we expect in government if there is no cohesion within party structures? Very good morning to you. If you're just joining us, we are in discussion with the ANC Veterans League president, this on the back of the step-aside issue which appears to be tearing the ANC apart. Dr. Zikalala, I want to come to the issue of governance. With the recent history, when I say recent history, I'm talking about the Zuma administration, the recent administration. There was divisions within the ANC, and in government you saw those divisions playing themselves out. Is there guarantee that with the kind of turmoil that characterizes the ANC right now, that is not going to spill over into government?
No. It shouldn't. It shouldn't, because civil servants are supposed to be apolitical. Civil servants are supposed to serve society with integrity and with dignity. It cannot spill over. But as we are saying, that majority of NEC members, majority of NWC members support the question of cleansing the ANC itself, and especially also in government.
How can you be so sure, Dr. Zikalala, when Ace Magashule is going to count among the people that he says state resources are being used against them? That person is a sitting minister of Human Settlements and Sanitation, Lindiwe Sisulu.
Well, let Minister Lindiwe Sisulu come up with an affidavit. She has the right to put his complaint in front of the National Working Committee. She has that right and opportunity to do so. She has the right to go to the Integrity Commission with documents to say, I'm being targeted. And she must explain that. I respect Comrade Lindiwe Sisulu, and I've worked with her in 1974-75 when she was in Botswana. I was in charge of Botswana. And so she's a woman of integrity. And so let people's names not be used, because individuals must account for their misdeeds as individuals. Don't rope in and so has done this, so and so. Let that individual who feels aggrieved come up and say, I, as Snuki, I'm aggrieved because I've been followed, there are state resources used against me. Let that individual come up and state his case clearly in the ANC itself. We're a democratic organization. We do deal with very difficult issues which affect individuals, but individuals are members of the party. And we have to deal and treat them with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that those who have that information, let them put that information on the table. They can even go to the police and lay a charge. If they are being followed, the police are there.
These kinds of claims, Dr. Zikalala, are not new. We know the claims that state resources are being used against certain individuals. These claims were made by the former president at the time. and the kind of impact that they had in institutions such as the National Prosecuting Authority was debilitating, perhaps to use even a softer term. How do you think law enforcement should continue to do its work at a time like this? Because it sometimes does become awkward for them when governing party officials are at each other's throats. Some within the authority may feel reticent about doing their jobs and doing their jobs without fear or favor.
No, the president of the African National Congress and the president of the country made it clear many times at NEC meetings, at National Working Committee meetings, that he will never use state resources to fight personal battles. He's made it very clear. And those state organs are independent from the ruling party. They are independent. They have to carry their work with dignity and integrity. They must make sure that they are not influenced by what is happening within the African National Congress. If they are senior civil servants who are patriots, not party members, but patriots, let them be allowed to do their work without any interference from politicians. They should be allowed. If that happens, they must take the matter to court. They can say, look, my job has been made difficult because I'm being forced to take a political stance on this and that, and the courts will be able to take their complaints seriously.
Yeah. Let me wrap this conversation, Dr. Zikalala, by taking it back to party members. A special meeting of the NEC is going to sit this weekend. What is on the agenda of that meeting?
Well, we have not yet received the agenda, but I think of importance is to look at the problems that we're currently having. I'm sure that will one of the most important area that we have to discuss. We can't just keep quiet about it. And we have to see exactly as the NEC, how do we renew the organization? And renewal should be based on the values and principles of the organization and nothing else. And so that would be, and also how to unite the party. We agree that certain comrades who are aggrieved, but if a comrade, a person, an individual joins the organization as an individual, and he takes an oath as an individual, if he gets involved in malfeasance, why should he rope everybody in? It's not allowed. It should not be allowed. Let every individual account for his misdeeds and prove his innocence in front of the court of law. That's all that we're saying.
You know, when you say that each individual must account for their misdeeds, the NEC member, Naledi Pandor, is overseas, as I understand it right now, and she was speaking to an international news network just a few days ago, and she made mention that, and I'm trying to quote her, although I'll probably paraphrase her, she said it is their hope that those who have been involved in corruption should go to prison. Are you going to repeat those words? Do you agree with those words that those who have been found to have done wrong, in government especially, they must go and sit in prison?
Why not? Why not? As I said, corruption has robbed poor people of dignity because they're unemployed, has caused devastation within families because the parents are not working, has caused kids not to be able to go to school. And so why should, if people loot with impunity, what should be done? It doesn't matter who you are. We have been given this privilege. It's a privilege to serve South African society, you know, and it's an honor. Now, if we abuse that privilege, it should not be accepted. Absolutely. We should not play with our own people. We should not play with our democracy. People died for this democracy that we're having today. And so we must make sure we honor those who laid their lives for where we are by saying that we'll deal severely with corruption within our own organization first. And then make sure that we serve our people with dignity and integrity.
Perhaps finally then, the president, it would appear that he is going to be under severe pressure as he leads government and leads the ANC. What should his approach be at a time like this? Naledi Pandor seems to suggest that he is very, very resolute in cleaning up corruption. How do you think he should assert his authority, if you like?
Well, he should assert his authority by ensuring that the NPA is well-resourced, number one, because it is not well-resourced. It was decimated when Scorpions were dissolved. He should assert his authority by ensuring that we implement what he promised society that will do. He promised society that will deal with corruption when he got elected by 10 million people who voted us in power and who entrusted us that he should govern this country. And so he has to be resolute in terms of corruption. They should not play with people's sentiments. We should make sure that we deliver on our set objectives. I think the president of the ANC of the country is prepared to do that. It goes with the job. It won't be happy. Some individuals won't be happy, but immediately if you put your hand in the cookie jar, face the full might of the law.
Can he afford to continue preaching unity with people like Ace Magashule, who has now come out in the open showing his hand, and he said yesterday that the president is suspended? I don't think any South African right now is under any illusion about relations between the president and the Secretary General. But I suspect you're going to say this is not about individuals, this is about leading a party. But a party is comprised of individuals.
No. You see,
so what does he say? Does he continue on the path of saying unity, Makaban?
But comrades, it should be unity of purpose. It should be unity based on the values and principles of the organization. If an individual decides to move away from the values and principles of the organization, he cannot belong to that organization. He cannot. And so currently he is a suspended Secretary General of the African National Congress. And let me put a caveat, temporarily, until he has cleared his name in the court of law. It's all that we're saying. We have nothing against Comrade Ace Magashule. He's our Secretary General, as he said, was elected at Nasrec. And so he's there. But now if the court of law has indicted him for corruption, for theft, money laundering, what must we do? He got indicted as an individual. And so he must not drag the whole ANC down with him. That should not be allowed.
You know,
and what you are saying...
I said I was going to end this, but a very interesting question just came to mind, Dr. Zikalala. There are those who are saying perhaps this might be the opportune time for the ANC to go to an early conference. Do you think that should happen?
No, the conference is only coming next year. Why should you go to an early conference? For what? Because these are individuals who are charged for corruption. Why should you go? And the members of the NEC who are there were elected by branches. And they, with a mandate that they must clean the African National Congress. That's a mandate, that they must clean the African National Congress. Now, if they clean the NEC members and saying, we're going to cleanse this organization, we're going to root out corruption in government, we're going to ensure that we bring back the integrity of the ANC, we know that we have a trust deficit with society, we're going to make sure that happens. Why should we go for a conference? Why? Because that's a mandate we got from Nasrec when we got elected. Why should we go to conferences only happening end of next year?
All right. Dr. Snuki Zikalala, thank you very much for your time. He's the president of the Veterans League of the African National Congress. Let's just